Chris, you and PB with a pretty hot take. Peter Burns, obviously you guys do this show and everybody watches. Pretty big hot take in the preseason. Maybe the talent disparity from Georgia.
Hold on now. Let's clarify. Here's the deal.
Okay.
You know, my boy PB likes to speak in absolutes, right? So he's like, the road. Coach, what's up? Coach, got to say what's up to Coach Beamer real quick.
Yeah.
The road to the SEC championship, to the national championship, does not go through Athens anymore. It goes through Austin, Texas. You know, and I was like, I think that might be a little premature. Now, I think there's certain reasons to be concerned about Georgia. You don't see losses like what they suffered on the road to Ole Miss or what they suffered in the Sugar Bowl to Notre Dame. I thought not only that they lost that game, but the physical nature of that ball game. You don't see them losing physical battles that often. So that to me was a little concerning. Obviously, you and I have talked a lot about how difficult it is to retain the talent that you used to be able to retain. And if you get hit with injuries at certain positions, you don't have that next man up that doesn't cost you a little bit in terms of talent or experience. So I do think there's reason to be a little, suspect on whether or not the Georgia train keeps rolling. But what is Texas given anybody to think about that they're the king of the SEC? That's the thing to me. It's like, all right, you have a new starting quarterback, albeit a highly recruited one. You lost a lot of talent at the offensive line and receiver spots. And you go back last year, what was their big win? Right? 3-point win on the road at Vandy, 10-point win on the road at A&M. Like, I don't necessarily think there's anything to hang your hat on. And their schedule's more difficult this year. You got to go to Columbus, got to go to Gainesville. And, oh, by the way, you haven't beaten Georgia in the 2 times you played them since joining the league, and you got to go to Athens. So right. I think there's reason to be worried about the Longhorns a little bit too.
Well, really, just the parity in the league. I mean, you look at Georgia, and they're the SEC champs, but they beat Kentucky by 1 point. They went 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech. They did lose by double digits to Ole Miss. That wasn't vintage Georgia as we know them, 21 and 22. But really, Chris, can we see anybody do what 21 and 22 Georgia did in this day and age of parity?
I thought that Kirby said it best more than anybody. It's like, we shouldn't expect to have what used to happen now. Now it's like, hey, it doesn't matter how you win. If you win in 8 overtimes or you win 1 point game, the bottom line is winning a football game. And so, I think it's going to be difficult for anybody from this conference. It's such a grind, the schedule, and it's so funny to think about what we in terms of manageability of schedules, right? To me, it's about who you play, where you play them, and when on the schedule it falls. Yeah. And I think that Texas is a little bit of a beneficiary in terms of a more manageable SEC schedule. Georgia's schedule's brutal. Florida's is brutal. South Carolina's is brutal. But if there's anybody that can handle it, I think it's Kirby. And I think this is certainly another year where Georgia gets back to the playoff.
Yeah, Texas, by the way, with a bye week before they play Georgia. Thank you very much.
It worked out well, right?
Yeah, I'd say we're not going to have to wait long, though. Alabama comes to Georgia. The Tide brings back 4 starting offensive linemen. DeBoer has his offensive coordinator back, right? Maybe some magic there. Pretty good defense. What about Alabama as a contending team? Last year was a dip. They dropped out of the playoff. I say second tier. A lot of people get ticked. But, hey, there's 3 first-tier teams made the playoff. If you're not first tier, you're second. Is the Tide ready to return first tier? Are they a playoff team?
Everybody, again, your boy PB making these big statements. He says, people, the seat for Kalen DeBoer much hotter than it is for Brian Kelly. I don't believe that, or from a pressure standpoint, I don't believe that's the case. I think you look at Alabama. You got a coach that's never coached in the SEC, comes in following the footsteps of the greatest to ever do it. You get a lot of buy-in from the existing roster. Look at all the guys on defense that decided to stay around this year for Alabama. Yeah. You got some great recruits. Their recruiting is off the charts right now. You did well last year. You did well in the portal. And you mentioned Ryan Grubb. I think that's the most under-talked about thing as it relates to Alabama. Kalen DeBoer getting his right-hand man back this year as the coordinator there. Let him be the CEO. How about the experience that he gained last year, too? I think Alabama's one of those teams that, again, is poised to be in the college football playoff field this year after missing last year.
Yeah, you mentioned Brian Kelly a moment ago, and you look at LSU, you can't ignore this transfer portal influx they've had. They got the number 1 portal class. Nussmeier coming back, 4,000-yard passer. Whit Weeks, middle of deep. Perkins back on defense. I mean, LSU's more than just a dark horse. I mean,
I'm picking LSU to win the national championship.
All right. Well, there we go. There's the headline.
That is my pick for the national championship this year. Blake Baker will have that defense playing better this year. I know there's questions about the offensive line, but that you do have some experience up front there. You mentioned Nuss. They've got a nice group of receivers that they're surrounding him with, going out and getting Nick Anderson and Barry Brown. And how about Caden Durham? Joe Sloan, you cannot tell me that Brian Kelly has not mandated to Joe Sloan, we're going to run the football better than we did last year.
No doubt about it. So, big picture items, big ticket items. College football playoffs. Where are you at on the college football playoffs? Do you think we get to the expansion, or do you think we're going to be stalemated at 12, 1, 2? Where do you think we're going to end up with this portal?
I think we get to 14 in the college football playoff.
14. Is that going to be a compromise there?
Excuse me. What am I talking about? 16. I think we're going to 16. What am I talking about? We're going to 16 teams, and I was thinking about the next thing. I think we're going to the one transfer portal. The biggest thing that you have to figure out is when you do that. You talk to some of these coaches. Kirby was very outspoken about like the idea of not having that late transfer portal where guys are taking 2/3 of the money that they've been promised. So I think that that's one of the big things. And the thing that we're heading to is 9 conference games. I mean, it's got to be inevitably.
You think that's going to happen?
I do think so. I mean, there's just too much money on the table, too much opportunity there. So fans want to see that. You know what spoiled everybody? The 10-game SEC only COVID season.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that was not amazing getting to see SEC games every single week.
Chris, I can't let you out of the seat without talking about the Gators and Georgia in this rivalry. Now, I know you wanted to see it go home and home. It's not going to happen after.
I never saw it. No, don't put me in that.
In the Atlanta,
okay.
instead of Atlanta and Tampa, you were for the home and home.
Yeah,
in that
I
2
was
years
because
span.
I got the experience. It was awesome.
What do you see with this year's game, and how healthy do you think Lagway is? I know you recently said that you thought maybe it was.
I think it's healthy. My understanding is maybe it was an injury that was lingering from high school that needed to get cleaned up, and he's being held out of spring for precautionary purposes. I do think that's a bigger loss, though. Missing those reps that you would have with the new receiver, Sturdivant, with Dallas Wilson, with Trey Wilson coming back from injury, with Vernell Brown. Those things are costly misses that you can't make up for. But at the same time, you look at all the pieces in addition to those receivers that you added. The offensive line is going to be tremendous. Defensive line is one of the best in the league. Depth at running back. I think Florida's poised to take that next step forward this year. And I don't know how many Georgia people would say this, but DJ Lagway doesn't go down in that game. Maybe it's a little different last year at the cocktail party, right?
No doubt about it.